I do believe that your emotions are a guide and that you should follow what brings you joy, what makes you excited. But a lot of times the things that we desire and the things that make us feel good are not what's best for us. Like a lot of times you might crave fast food and unhealthy things, or you might crave a toxic person. And so how do we know when to trust our desire, when to follow what we want versus not? The way that the law of attraction works is that when you act on your current emotional state, you're going to bring in more of that emotional state. So if you can get yourself into a really high emotional state by meditating or visualizing or just like practicing gratitude and practicing positive emotions, then you can act on your intuition, act on the intuitive hits that you're getting and the inspiration that you're getting, and follow that in order to bring in a better reality and to bring in a really high emotional state. But if you're in a lower emotional state, acting on your desires and acting on what you feel inspired to do is always going to keep you where you're at. This is why I also believe that it's safe to have negative emotions. It's safe to feel fear and doubt and all of these things, and it's not going to bring in a negative reality, because the key is to not act on those negative emotions. You can have emotions of fear, and fear is going to make you want to play it small, right? It's going to make you want to protect yourself. But when you can ignore that, despite being in a negative emotional state, you are not acting on your negative emotional state. You're not letting it control you. And so when you're able to face your fears anyway, you're still bringing in a more positive reality and a higher emotional state in the future. It's the same thing with self-doubt and with insecurity. It's okay to feel these things. It's okay to feel negative emotions, but don't act on them. Don't let them control you. Don't let them guide your actions. If you make decisions based on that feeling, then you're going to stay stuck in that feeling and in that reality. Or if you're in a state of really missing someone, wanting someone, missing your ex who's unhealthy, or wanting someone who's toxic for you, or you're craving love and comfort and validation from someone, even if it's not an unhealthy person, that's kind of being in a state of lack. And so when you act on that state of lack, you're staying in that state of lack. But when you can instead desire something that is not the best for you and just be okay with that and not actually act on that desire, you're teaching yourself that you have discipline, you have self-control, you don't actually need anything outside of you, you're actually completely whole already. At the same time, I do think that we're meant to have certain desires, we're meant to go after certain things. You know, we're meant to be human, we're meant to have an ego, and I think there's reasons that you want certain things. It's because a future version of you has it, and you came to this earth to pursue that thing. But really look at which emotional state are you in when you're having desires, because some desires are going to keep you stuck in a reality that you don't want to be in, and other desires are going to help you get to that higher reality. Part of healing is learning to allow yourself to feel pleasure and indulge in pleasure and have a healthy relationship with that. But having a healthy relationship with pleasure also means not overindulging in it. The more that we can delay gratification, the more pleasure we receive. And you can see this in many areas of life. Working out, sex, building a business. These are all areas where when you delay quick gratification, you will experience a greater reward, a greater pleasure. We all get to choose what we want. You can live a life of easy dopamine, easy pleasure, quick pleasure, and that's totally fine. You get to choose that if that's something that you want to engage in, if that's the life that you want to live. But also, the more that you can be disciplined, the more that you can practice self-control and delaying gratification, the bigger the reward is going to be. And I believe that heaven is a state of mind, and you get there by essentially doing this, by sacrificing and by delaying pleasure. You get there by not sinning, and there's nothing wrong with sinning. You're probably already doing it now and everything's fine. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. Sometimes you suffer probably, but it's really like, it's nothing to be afraid of. You have already lived in this reality your whole life probably. But when you can overcome lust and greed and sloth and gluttony and pride, and you can be celibate and you can not eat unhealthy foods, and you can be disciplined and you can work towards your goals, you will achieve a state of mind that is so much better than any of the pleasure that you get from those things. And I say this because this is the reality that I live in. I'm in such a happy state of mind, and sometimes I do slip out of it when I engage in these like earthly pleasures too much. And either way, life is fun, either way I'm happy, but it definitely is a very different experience where my joy comes from nothing. My joy is just inherent, and I just wake up with it every day and constantly feel it when I'm not engaging in any of these like sinful things. And it's like 100 times better than the pleasure that I feel from eating unhealthy food. But yeah, I think for a while I was kind of confused. I was like, do you follow your desires? Do you follow what lights you up? And sometimes I was, and then I was like, wait, this is actually clearly not what's best for me, because I find myself like desiring this toxic person. I'm obviously not gonna do that. I can tell that's not what's best for me. So when do I follow my desires? When do I follow what I want? I've come to this conclusion that your desires will keep you where you're at. So if where you're at is great and you are able to create an elevated emotional state, then you should follow your desires. You should follow what you feel inspired to do, and it's gonna keep you in that state. But if you're in a lower emotional state, definitely don't act on your emotions and don't act on your desires. It's perfectly fine to be in that emotional state though. You're not attracting a negative reality unless you're acting on your emotional state. I think that when we allow ourselves to feel what we feel and to feel all of our negative emotions, it's so healing. It allows us to purge. It allows us to transmute the emotions into positive things. The human experience is not supposed to be 100% positive. It all is equally valuable, and there's so much beauty in the pain and in the negative emotions as well. And I think it's just like so beautiful to be able to experience the full spectrum of human emotions. Once you stop resisting them and you stop trying to change your emotions and you stop thinking I shouldn't feel this way and like this is bad, and you just like lean into it and you let yourself grieve, you let yourself be sad, it's very healing. And it's actually, you get this feeling of like comfort and pleasure almost when you just allow yourself to feel your emotions. At least that's been my experience. And there's also a time where you do need to switch your mindset, switch your emotional state, become grateful and focus on what you want, focus on all the good in your life. But I think there's also a place for honoring your emotions and allowing yourself to feel them and validating yourself, validating your experience. I think that is so important. The sacral chakra deals with pleasure and having a healthy relationship with pleasure. And then the solar plexus is the next chakra, and that deals with willpower and self-control and intuition. So I feel like I'm going through like solar plexus lessons now. For a while I was kind of in this space of kind of overindulging in pleasure and doing what made me feel good and eating foods that made me happy, just like having fun instead of being super disciplined. Because I'm also in this place of like, I don't care anymore really what happens in the future. Like I have certain desires because I think I'm supposed to, but I just like trust the universe and I'm having fun, I'm enjoying the journey, and I'm not desperate for any specific outcome. But then at the same time, I feel like I desire certain things for a reason, and I'm supposed to bring them into reality. And we are creators, and we're meant to create the reality that we want and to make the things happen that we want to happen. But yeah, for a while I feel like I was kind of overindulging in pleasure, and I was confused about what relationship to have with it, because I was like, I think it's good to follow my desire, to follow my intuition, and I was kind of confused about it. But now I've come to this conclusion that following your desire, following pleasure is always going to keep you where you're at. And so when I meditate in the mornings for 30 minutes and I visualize the reality that I want and the identity that I want, the version of me that I want to be, and I get into this really high mental state and I feel really present and happy and grateful, then the things that I desire to do are things that are best for my future. Then I end up desiring to eat healthy and to work on my YouTube channel and to do things that are best for me long term as well. And those are the things that actually bring me the most pleasure and that I feel intuitively guided to do. But when I don't consciously create that state, that emotional state, and then I just follow my pleasure all day, then I end up eating out often and watching YouTube videos and going out with friends and dating people that I shouldn't be dating. And there's nothing wrong with these things. I think there's a place for everything. We're just having a human experience. You get to decide what you want. You can have whichever experience you want to have. But I do love the feeling of delaying gratification and working towards bigger goals and working towards a better reality for myself. And that's what I want to choose, and that's what I want to consciously create. So it is important to act on your intuition, act on what you feel inspired to do, act on what brings you joy, but look at where you are emotionally when you're taking those actions. Are you in an emotional state that you want to perpetuate, or are you in an emotional state that you want to get out of? If you want to get out of the emotional state, you don't even necessarily have to change your emotional state. Just don't act on that emotional state. If you're in a state of fear and insecurity and grief, just don't act on the things that your brain is telling you to do in that situation. When you're having negative emotions, just be present with the emotions, just sit with them and don't take action from that place. And then when you're more in a neutral state, that's when you can really work on building up positive emotions. But also there's gonna be times where we're like at rock bottom and it's up to you to create a better emotional state and to practice feelings of gratitude and stuff. So just work on finding that balance within yourself. There's really no right answers. I know for me, it's really important for me to at least take some time to validate my negative emotions and to allow myself to feel them instead of always trying to push them away and ignore them. Because I did that for so much of my life and it really was harmful. If you could use some help getting out of negative emotional states and transmuting negative emotions into something positive, I have a workbook for processing your emotions that you can get on Amazon, or you can get it for $5 on my website. And if you can't afford it, just send me an email, I'll send it to you. I really think this workbook is gonna change people's lives and I would love for everyone to have access to it.